Dad had full access to the trust fund of what my late mom set up for me, but I found out he emptied the account of all $50,000 and gave it to my stepsister to buy a house. Now he's telling me there's nothing I can do about it. When I was just 4 years old, my mother passed away due to a serious health complication. At such a young age, I didn't fully understand what was happening, but her absence left a huge void in my life. Before she passed, she made sure to plan for my future by setting up a trust fund in my name. This money was meant to support me as I grew up, covering important expenses like my college education and anything else I might need. My dad had full access to this fund, but for many years, he never touched it, or at least, that's what I believed. I didn't even know this trust fund existed until much later in my life. It wasn't my dad who told me about it, but rather my maternal grandparents. They explained how thoughtful and forward-thinking my mom was, always wanting to make sure I had a secure future even if she couldn't be there to take care of me herself. That was just the kind of person she was: caring, responsible, and always thinking ahead. When I found out about the trust fund, I was shocked. I had so many questions. Why hadn't my dad ever told me about it? Why did I have to hear about it from my grandparents instead? When I finally confronted my dad about it, he didn't deny it. He admitted that the trust fund existed and explained that my mom had put aside nearly $50,000 for me before she passed. He reassured me that the money was still there and that I would have full access to it once I turned 18. Then, about 2.5 years ago, my dad met my stepmother, Kim. At the time, she was already a mother to a young girl named Maggie. Kim had been in a difficult relationship with her ex, and from what I've heard, their relationship was anything but healthy. They had parted ways long before she met my dad, but they still shared custody of Maggie. Despite their past issues, she and her ex were both involved in raising their daughter. When Kim and my dad met, she was upfront about what she was looking for in a partner. She told him she wanted someone who was loyal and stable, someone she could rely on. My dad, who had been on his own for quite some time, seemed to like her right away. They clicked pretty quickly, and it wasn't long before their relationship started getting serious. From the very beginning, it was clear that Kim and Maggie never really liked me. I tried to be open-minded when they first came into our lives, but it quickly became obvious that I was being treated differently. Kim never made an effort to include me the way a stepmother should. She always openly prioritized Maggie over me in every situation, making it clear that she saw me as an outsider rather than part of the family. One of the things that stood out the most was how she handled family outings. Whenever we were going out for a meal, she would insist that we go to Maggie's favorite restaurant every single time. It didn't matter if I didn't like the food there or if I suggested a different place. My opinion was never considered, and my dad, wanting to keep the peace, would usually just go along with whatever Kim and Maggie wanted. It made me feel like I didn't matter. Another thing that really hurt was how Kim reacted whenever my dad got me gifts. If he bought me something expensive, especially on special occasions like my birthday, Kim would immediately demand that he get Maggie something equally valuable, even though it wasn't even her birthday. It was as if she couldn't stand the idea of me receiving anything special without Maggie getting the same treatment. My dad would usually give in just to avoid conflict, but it made me feel like I wasn't allowed to have anything of my own. On top of all this, Kim constantly made plans that involved just the three of them, her, my dad, and Maggie, while deliberately leaving me out. Whether it was trips, outings, or even just small activities at home, she always found ways to exclude me. It was never outright or obvious enough for my dad to call it out, but over time, it became clear that she didn't want me to be part of their new family. No matter how much I tried to ignore it, the message was loud and clear: I wasn't truly welcome. About 6 months into their relationship, Kim and Maggie moved in with us. I knew things would change, but I never expected Kim to demand something so unreasonable right away. As soon as they settled in, she insisted that I give up my bedroom so Maggie could have it instead. Her reasoning? Maggie had more things and could use the space much better. It didn't matter that this had been my home long before they arrived, or that my room was my personal space. It was just another way for Kim to make sure her daughter got priority over me. I refused, of course. This was my house, my room, and I had every right to keep it. I wasn't about to just hand it over to Maggie simply because she was older than me. It wasn't fair, and I wasn't going to be pushed around just to make them happy. But Kim and Maggie didn't let it go. They argued with me about it constantly, trying to guilt-trip me into giving in. They made me feel like I was being selfish for wanting to keep something that had been mine all along. Even my dad got involved, and at first, I thought he would have my back. But instead of standing up for me, he sided with Kim. He told me that, for the sake of keeping family peace, I should just give up my room and let Maggie have it. That hurt more than anything. It wasn't about the room anymore, it was about the fact that my own dad was willing to push me aside just to avoid conflict with Kim. Regardless, I refused to back down. No matter how much they argued, I wasn't going to let them push me out of my own room. When I realized my dad wasn't going to stand up for me, I decided to get my maternal grandparents involved. They had always been my biggest supporters, and I knew they wouldn't tolerate what was happening. One important detail that Kim and Maggie either didn't know or probably chose to ignore was that the house we all lived in technically belonged to me. It had originally been my maternal grandfather's house, and after he passed it down to my mom, she left it to me in her will when she passed away. My dad never owned the house, it was always mine. So when my grandparents found out that he was trying to push me into a smaller room in my own home just to accommodate Kim and Maggie, they were absolutely furious. My grandfather didn't hold back. He made it clear to my dad that if this was how things were going to be, then my dad, Kim, and Maggie could find a new house for themselves and get their own rooms instead of forcing me to adjust. He wasn't going to stand by and watch them take advantage of me, especially in a house that rightfully belonged to me. His words hit hard, and my dad knew he had no choice but to back down. He wasn't happy about it, but in the end, he had to give in. As for Kim and Maggie, they were furious. They hated the fact that they couldn't get their way, and it was obvious they resented me even more after that. But at least, they realized that they couldn't just walk all over me. I had people in my corner who wouldn't let them. Over the past few years, Kim and Maggie have done everything they can to make my life miserable. It's not just small, petty things. Instead, it's been a constant effort to make me feel like I don't belong in my own home. They team up against me, treating me poorly both in obvious ways and in more subtle, manipulative ways when my dad isn't around to see it. Whenever I try to speak up about how they treat me, they gaslight me, making it seem like I'm just imagining things or overreacting unnecessarily. If I tell my dad what's going on, they act completely innocent, twisting the situation to make me look like the problem. They'll claim I'm making things up or misunderstanding their actions, which only makes it harder for my dad to see the truth. He either believes them or just doesn't want to deal with the conflict, so nothing ever changes. Because of all this, there are constant fights in our house. The tension never goes away because they never stop pushing my buttons, and when I finally push back, they act like I'm the bad guy. If I stand up for myself, they double down, making me feel guilty or wrong for even trying to defend myself. It's an exhausting cycle, and no matter what I do, it feels like they always find new ways to make me feel unwanted. My dad doesn't do much to help either, and that's one of the things that hurts the most. No matter how obvious it is that Kim and Maggie treat me unfairly, he either ignores it or makes excuses for them. I hate that he chose to marry such a toxic woman and bring her into our lives, someone who makes my life miserable every single day. In the past, he and Kim have forced me to go to therapy because they think I'm too angry and too stubborn. But the truth is, my anger isn't coming out of nowhere. I'm not just being difficult for no reason. I'm reacting to the way I'm being treated, and no amount of therapy can change the fact that they are the root cause of all of this. How am I supposed to heal when I'm still stuck in the same toxic environment? Therapy won't fix what they refuse to acknowledge. Anyway, this year, Maggie decided to drop out of college and marry her longtime boyfriend. Honestly, I have no idea why my dad and Kim supported her in making such a reckless decision, but at this point, nothing they do surprises me. If they think it's a good idea, that's on them. I stayed out of it because, frankly, it wasn't my problem. Maggie's boyfriend is from Hawaii, so the wedding was held there. I wasn't invited because Maggie didn't want me there, which honestly, was perfectly fine with me. The last thing I wanted was to be surrounded by people who didn't even like me, pretending we were one big happy family. Kim had already flown out ahead of time, and my dad was supposed to join them on the wedding day itself. However, on the day of the wedding, there were major thunderstorms, and my dad's flight got delayed until the next day. Because of that, he couldn't make it in time for the ceremony. It wasn't his fault, he had no control over the weather or flight schedules, but that didn't stop Kim and Maggie from getting angry at him. They acted as if he had purposely skipped the wedding, even though there was absolutely nothing he could have done to change the situation. Instead of understanding that it was out of his hands, they were furious with him, which just showed how entitled and unreasonable they always were. Ever since the wedding, every time Maggie visits back home, she won't stop bringing this up. She constantly reminds my dad about how embarrassed she was that he wasn't there to walk her down the aisle. She acts like he failed her in some huge way, even though it was completely out of his control. What makes it even more ridiculous is that her own biological father didn't even bother to show up at all. Yet, instead of directing her anger at her own father, she keeps dumping it all on my dad, as if he intentionally missed the wedding. He has already apologized over and over again, but that's not enough for her. It's like she just wants to keep holding it over his head, making him feel guilty for something that wasn't his fault in the first place. Then, not even 2 months after the wedding, Maggie got pregnant. And of course, instead of figuring things out like an adult, she decided that the best solution was to move back into our house. Her excuse? She and her husband had been living in a van, and apparently, that was unsafe for raising a baby. So now, she's back here, acting like she owns this place. I hate it. Maggie has always been entitled, but ever since she got pregnant, it's only gotten worse. She walks around like she's the first person in the world to ever have a baby, expecting everyone to cater to her every need. She constantly acts like she deserves special treatment just because she's having a child, and, as usual, my dad and Kim are enabling it. Recently, she even had the nerve to threaten me about my own room again. She told me that once I left for college, she would throw away my things and move in because she and her baby deserved a bigger space. She made it clear that she expected my room to be hers and called me a brat for not just handing it over to her. This turned into a massive fight. I had finally had enough. This time, I firmly made it clear to my dad that I was done arguing over this matter. I told him, straight up, that if Kim and Maggie kept treating me like this, I would have them evicted from the house once I turned of age. I was done tolerating their entitled behavior, their constant bullying, and their complete lack of respect for me and my own home. As expected, my dad tried to defend them as he usually does, but I shut him down before he could even finish. I reminded him that if he forced my hand, I would get my maternal grandparents involved again. The moment I said that, I could see the panic in his face. He knew that my grandparents wouldn't hesitate to take action, just like they did before. After talking it over with Kim, they finally came to a decision. Instead of letting Maggie stay here and continue causing fights, they would help her and her husband buy a house of their own. Honestly, it's about time. She's starting her own family now, so it only makes sense that she has her own space instead of trying to take over mine. Last week, I finally turned 18. It was a huge milestone not just because I was officially an adult, but because it meant that I was now the legal owner of my house and finally had full access to the trust fund that Mom had set up for me. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had some real control over my future. But that feeling didn't last long. When I went to check my trust fund, I was absolutely shocked to find that it was completely empty. Every last dollar was gone. The $50,000 that my mom had left for me, money that was supposed to help me with college and my future, had completely vanished. I was furious. This is when I started to suspect Dad because he was the only one who had access to this account. Later, when I confronted my dad about it, he didn't even try to deny it. He gave me some nonsense excuse about why he took all the money. He told me that he had a medical emergency and that it was necessary for him to take my money. When I asked him what exactly this so-called medical emergency was, he kept deflecting and insisted that he was planning to pay it all back very soon. But I didn't believe him for a second. If this was really about a medical emergency, why didn't he tell me sooner? Why did he secretly take all of the money without even discussing it with me? Nothing about his story added up, and at that moment, I realized he was lying. If my dad had been seriously sick or needed some kind of major procedure, I would have known. But there was nothing. No hospital visits, no doctor's appointments, nothing unusual at all that I had noticed. Hence, I straight up told him that he was lying and I didn't believe him for a second. Instead of explaining himself, Dad called me an immature child and said that I had no right to even question him about the money since he was my parent and had every right to use the money as he wished. I argued that the trust fund was set up for me for my future, my education, my expenses. It wasn't a shared account, and he had zero excuse for touching it. That's when he got defensive. Instead of admitting he was wrong, he claimed that even though my mom had left this money for me, he had spent way more money on raising me, so in his mind, taking the $50,000 didn't even come close to covering all the money he had spent on me over the years. I was taken aback by this. As if I owed him this money just because he raised me and did what basically every parent is supposed to do. He has kept refusing to tell me the truth about where the money actually went, and that only makes it more obvious that whatever he has used it for, it isn't something he wants me to know about. So, Ida for being upset at my dad for taking away my money? Update 1. Thank you to everyone who has reached out with advice and support. I honestly didn't expect this kind of response, and I'm overwhelmed by how many people have taken the time to help me. After thinking it over, I've decided to follow everyone's advice and contact my maternal grandparents. They are the only ones I can truly rely on, and I know they'll have my back in this situation. I should have gone to them sooner, but I guess part of me didn't want to believe my dad would actually do something like this to his own child. Just to clarify, I reviewed the bank records and saw that my dad has occasionally withdrawn a few $100s from my trust fund, but never a significant amount. However, this latest withdrawal has completely emptied the account. I can't even put into words how upset I am. My own father took money that was meant for me, money that my mom worked hard to set aside so I could have a future. And he knows how much I need that money for college and my other future expenses, since he and Kim don't have any money set aside for me. Yet he still took it selfishly without even talking to me first. At this point, I don't even care about staying in this house anymore. I have no problem just moving out and letting my dad and Kim stay here. But what I won't do is let my dad get away with this. He stole from me, and whether he likes it or not, he's going to have to answer for it. Update 2. Everyone was right, my dad did give my money to my stepsister. Today, I confronted him again, and after pushing him hard enough, he begrudgingly admitted the truth. He had used the money from my trust fund to help Maggie buy her new house. He reasoned that he had always felt guilty about not being able to be there for her wedding day and that this was the least he could do for her. I am absolutely furious. This was my money. Money that my mom set aside for me for my education, my future, my security. And he just gave it away to Maggie like it was his own money to hand out. When I argued with him, at first, he tried to calm me down by reassuring me again that he would pay the money back. But when I asked him how he was planning to do so, he had no answers. I knew he was just saying this to shut me up. He had no plan to actually fix this, he just wanted me to drop it and hopefully forget about it. Then, when he realized I wasn't backing down, his entire attitude changed. He got angry and snapped at me, saying that there was nothing I could do about it. He smugly pointed out that, technically, he did have full access to my trust fund before I turned 18 as he is my legal guardian, so it wasn't like he did anything illegal. He tried to act like it was no big deal that he stole this money, as I should just accept it and move on. And then, to top it off, he mocked me. He told me I could go and cry about it if I wanted because he had already given the money to Maggie, whether I liked it or not. How dare he? How could he look me in the eye, knowing how much I needed that money, and still decide that Maggie, who has never had to struggle for anything, deserved it more than I did? She already had my dad and Kim bending over backward for her, and now she has my trust fund too? That was the moment I realized just how little he actually cares about me. He has never felt guilty for prioritizing his new family over me. He doesn't regret what he did. He knew he was screwing me over, and he did it anyway because, in his eyes, I meant nothing. And now, instead of even pretending to take responsibility at least, he's treating me like I'm the problem for being upset about this. So, I've made up my mind. Tomorrow, I'm going straight to my maternal grandparents' place and telling them everything. I should have done this sooner, but I guess a part of me still wanted to believe that my dad wouldn't actually betray me like this. But after the way he has spoken to me, after seeing how little he cares about what he's done, I know there's no fixing this on my own. I need help, otherwise he is never going to pay me back. I refuse to let my dad get away with this. He thinks I can't do anything about it? Well, we will see about that. Update 3. It's been a month since my last update, and a lot has happened. First of all, as planned, I went straight to my maternal grandparents and told them everything from my dad stealing my trust fund to him mocking me when I confronted him. They were furious and wasted no time confronting him about it, demanding answers. But just like he did with me, he fed them the same pathetic excuses. He took zero responsibility and kept coming up with excuses about when he was planning to pay me back. It was pretty much clear that he had no intention of ever making things right. So, my grandparents and I did what needed to be done. We met with a lawyer. After a long discussion, we all agreed that the first thing I needed to do was sell the house since it belonged to me. There was no reason for me to keep it. It's way too big for me to live alone, and more importantly, keeping it just means letting my dad continue to mooch off of me. Why should I let him and Kim live rent-free in my house when they've treated me like garbage for years? So, I immediately moved in with my grandparents before we took action. My lawyer handled all the paperwork, and my grandparents and I then gave my dad an official notice to move out. As expected, he lost it. He's absolutely furious that I am kicking him and Kim out. He has been calling me every single day, begging me not to go through with it. Suddenly, the same man who told me to go cry about it after stealing my money is desperate for me to change my mind. He's been trying everything to manipulate me too, pulling the emotional blackmail card, saying this house is the last memory of my mom and that selling it would be selfish. As if he actually cared about what my mom wanted. If he really cared about her memory, he wouldn't have stolen the money she left for me. But I refuse to give in. I refuse to let him guilt trip me into letting him stay after everything he's done. I want him and Kim gone as soon as possible. Update 4. It's been 2 months since my last update, and a lot has changed. I did end up selling my house, and honestly, it was the best decision I could have made. The sale went through smoothly, and I received a lot of money from it. Money that I'm now going to use for my college education and, in the future, to buy a place of my own. I am really glad that I am no more tied down to that house, no more being used by my dad and his wife. As expected, my dad and Kim did not take it well. Moving them out was a huge battle. There were so many arguments, so many attempts to guilt trip me into letting them stay, and so many unnecessary delays. Dad kept trying to play the disappointed parent card, telling me that I was being immature and short-sighted for selling a house that was meant to always be my family home. Kim, of course, backed him up, insisting that I was making a rash decision and that I would regret this when I got older. But I stood my ground, and in the end, they had no choice but to leave. Of course, Kim and Maggie couldn't go without getting the last word. They have left me several foul voicemails, calling me every name in the book for daring to sell my own house. The audacity of these people is unreal. They keep acting like I have somehow wronged them as if I owe them a free place to live forever. It's laughable. Anyway, even after the whole fiasco, my grandparents and I have tried to remain civil as much as possible. We even reached out to my dad to set up a payment plan with me so he could start paying me back the $50,000 he stole from me. After all, he had repeatedly promised me that he would do it. But, surprise surprise, he dodged our calls. He ignored every attempt we made to work things out like adults. Well, since he refused to cooperate, I've taken legal action against him. I have sued my own father. My lawyer and I are currently working hard to make sure my dad has no escape and will pay me back every single penny he took from me. It's so sad that I have to do this to my own father, but he had every opportunity to make things right, and yet, he chose to run away instead. Now, he'll have to face real consequences in the court of law. I will get my money back no matter what. Update 5. It's been 4 months since my last update, and for everyone asking, I just wanted to share some good news. I finally won my lawsuit. After months of legal battles, my dad had no choice but to face the consequences of what he did. The court ruled in my favor, and he has been officially ordered to pay me back every single penny of the $50,000 he stole from me. He tried to fight it at first, making excuses about how he didn't have the money and how it was unfair for me to take legal action against my own father. But none of that mattered in the end. The fact remains, he stole from me, and now he's legally obligated to make it right. I can't even describe how relieved I feel after all this. After everything he put me through, justice has finally been served. He spent years treating me like I was nothing, like my feelings and my rights didn't matter. He thought he could take my money, lie to my face, and get away with it. But he was wrong. Now, he has no choice but to pay me back.